have you told anybody like what's going on? Have you said it on here?
Yeah, I did. I made a video earlier. So I haven't really been feeling well the past few weeks. And my kids have been sick for the past few weeks. I have like a really bad sore throat. My glands down here are all swollen. And I just have like headaches, just feeling lousy overall. So I went to the emergency room, tested negative for strep. They did a bunch of lab work, but I do have mono. So
And mono, if you have never had mono, guys, mono is rough. I mean, so I've never had it. Shan had it back whenever she was in high school. One of my nieces has it currently, and she's had it for uh, 3 or 4 months now. And I've
wow.
talked to a bunch of people who have had it, and dude, mono is rough and it lasts for a long freaking time. You're just sick as shit, puking all over the place. You're getting headaches a lot. You're
Right.
lethargic. I mean, it's everything. It is horrible.
You know what though? It makes sense though because my kids have been sick for such a long time.
Hmm.
And I took them to the doctors and they tested negative for everything, but they weren't tested for that. So now I'm going to go get them tested because I'm always in close contact with my kids.
I mean, that explains it. You're the second person that I've known of in the past, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months that has it. So that's,
Right.
I don't know if it's as rare as it
I
used to
think it's
be.
making a comeback actually because a lot I've been looking up videos on here and I've even seen where kids are testing positive. I mean, you think like I don't know. I thought it was rare too until I started watching videos on here.
Mono's the kissing disease, but you can actually get it. You can get it all types of different ways. And kids, I feel like it would be more realistic, just because they kids put their mouths on freaking everything. They aren't going
Right.
around kissing nobody, but they're sharing drinks and all types.
Listen, if you're a mother and you have a drink like this and you put it down, my kid's touching that drink. I don't have anything
Oh,
to myself.
yeah, yeah, 1000%. That is what Marie is dealing with. She is gonna try and do her best here today. And while we were having
Right.
our pre-game talk, she was just chilling, puking in a bucket. Just
I want to get into the bucket thing. So I was on the phone with Kyle and he kind of thought that it was weird. Well, I started puking, but I had a bucket right next to me. And then I wanted to explain to Kyle like how I just had that sitting there. And I told him I don't really like to get sick in the bathroom. I would rather carry something like this around and just have it in my hand than be like on a bathroom floor somewhere. That brings back memories of like me being sick and using.
which is fair. And I mean, we both have boys. Being around the toilet is a nasty place because they don't know
Right.
how to aim. So it's like you go down to try and puke, and you feel like crap, and you stick your hand in a pile of pee because they missed the toilet. Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
Right. And it's just something that I don't want to deal with. So I would rather just carry a bucket around with me. I feel like it's like more sanitary.
I feel you though, dude.
But also, I never realized until I just said that brings back memories of like me being sick.
I had back in the day, shoot, I was probably like 16, 17. It was before I really started going crazy. I got blasted. I mean, I had been drinking so much. We had a little party. I think I was drinking, like, we were making some absolute mix that tasted like tea or some nonsense. I can't remember. But drank a whole bunch, just sick as all get out. I'm sitting in this chair in the living room, and I remember crawling. Literally, I had to fall out of the chair and just crawl to the bathroom, and I start puking my guts out. And
Ugh.
next thing I know, I wake up and I'm like just on the floor in the bathroom. And apparently I was puking in the toilet, then like fell over and started puking on myself. and my homie Marcus and my homie TB, they came in, cleaned me up, and got me all good, made sure I was okay. But I was like, y'all are real friends because I've got them after the fact. I got them out of some rough spots like that. But I'm just like, dude, I was covered in just nonsense, and they put me in the tub and cleaned me up and stuff. That's real friends.
I've been thrown in some tubs back in the day.
Oh, heck yeah.
That's a whole nother PTSD. Like when you're sick and someone either rips your clothes off and throws you in,
Yeah.
like I don't know. I've been in some situations like that for sure.
I get the appeal of drinking, but whenever you aren't like drinking every day, there are so many people that go out and just get blasted every single weekend or whatever. And
I
I
used
don't
to.
I used to too, and I don't understand the point of it anymore. And so I watched a couple of studies that said that it's kind of starting to die off at like colleges and stuff because just the next day you feel so freaking bad. Who wants to just be miserable for a couple
Right.
hours of fun and your next day is ruined? And like nowadays, if I was to drink, oh my, like I'd be out for 3 or 4 days, dude. I'd be dead. It would be so bad.
Well, I feel like the older you get, the harder it is. Like
Oh
with
yeah.
everything though, like even I feel like my back hurts more. Like I even lifting my kids, like I can't lift not one of my kids right now. Like I'm at that point where I just can't.
The toll it takes on your body because it tears you up. It makes you so weak and yeah, I don't get it at all. I like I said, I know it's fun to drink. I totally get it. I've done my fair share, but after a while, I don't understand these people that are like 25, 26, 27, or even older and they're like drinking every weekend just getting smashed and going
Right.
nowhere. But they aren't addicted. It's not like they have to go have these drinks. They just do it because that's their life. And I don't want to judge, but man, I don't get it.
Well, we used to be there. I remember those days. I remember wanting to like what's next? Come on guys, let's keep going. Like I had that mojo to keep going, but because we're getting older, we don't have that in us.
Yeah, one of my coworkers back in the day, whenever I was like 16, he was probably 30-ish, somewhere around there, and he would keep up with us every freaking weekend. And I was just like, now I can't even imagine that, keeping up with some young bucks drinking and smoking, doing all types of stuff. Like, no way. But
Right.
some people need it as like there's a social aspect to it whenever you aren't trying to get blackout drunk, but there's also like that anxiety reliever. They needed to feel confident. And I think
Right.
I think that's kind of a problem too, because if you need that to be confident, it's in you. You know you can
I
get confident
did.
somehow. So what
I
did you
needed it to be able to function. Well, not to function, but I at first I needed it to be able to like talk to people and socialize and like feel like I could put myself out there.
what do you feel like has changed that's made it so you don't need that? Besides the recovery side of things, like did you just finally figure it out?
Now I have coping mechanisms that I've learned in therapy that have
Good.
really helped me to be able to handle a lot of my anxiety, I feel like. But there are things that I was never taught, and they're simple things.
A lot of people use substances, whatever it may be, so that they can actually get through those conversations and stuff like that. And I was listening to a podcast the other day. It was actually Theo Vaughn, and he had Gabor Mate on, who I'm sure you heard Betty talking about him a couple of times, but he's really
Right,
big into life coaching and psychology and all types of stuff. And his insights into how much childhood affects us, even the little things like
right,
he talked about how whenever your parents are stressed and maybe money's a little bit tight and they're working too much so that they can't give that proper time to their children. They can't have proper time for each other. As a child, you don't see them progressing in a way that you need to grow. So it makes it so you do lose out on some of those communication skills and problem solving skills and all types of stuff. And it was fascinating because it was simple stuff. Like he talked about the fact that he grew up in, I want to say uh, it was somewhere. It was somewhere that was in a war period, but he grew up somewhere where there was a lot of war going on, and he has like a startle factor. Like if someone walks up behind him, instead of just that, like he knows it's his wife or something, and he'll turn around and still get startled. And it's been like that his entire life, and it's a trauma response from when he was a baby because he constantly heard those bombs dropping, and it was always startling him. Like from a level of he was like 1 year old and younger, but he knows where he was.
That's why they say that early childhood trauma really shapes and forms who you become in life and what you do.
Right.
Because it could be the smallest thing. It could, like, that's not a small thing, though. That must have been very traumatic as a
Right.
baby. Think about it. But it's weird that he remembers. I don't remember my childhood much, to be honest with you.
He he remembers some of it after like a lot of therapy and doing a he went to a ashwagandha like retreat session. He did a lot of experimenting with that stuff, and it showed him some really serious things that he dealt with as a child, and it kind of unlocked his brain so he could understand some of those triggers and stuff. It was
That's why I really truly believe that connecting with nature is one of the keys.
Mhm.
Because when you connect with nature and you find like a spot that you like and you could go for a walk and make it a routine, it's like you ground with nature. Like you start to be like, oh, I remember that tree and those leaves.
Yeah.
And it there's just something healing about connecting with nature for me personally. I feel like even earlier, you said you went on a walk, right?
Yeah, yeah.
How did that feel?
It was great. It was nice. We went with it was me, Shan, Carson, and we took the dog. And yeah, I mean, it was nice to just start the day kind of being outside. I'm a little tired today and stuff, so
Right. But when you start to do things like that on a routine, it it's like you look forward to it. There's something healing about it. There's something with like taking your shoes off, putting your feet in the sand, touching the grass, like looking at all the elements that are around you, the colors, like grounding yourself.
So Steffi mentioned that animals do it for her. She said, "I'm sitting here grooming my cats right now, and it gives me such peace." So there are a lot of people who have done studies on like having pets, like cats and dogs and stuff like that, and having them sleep with you it literally makes it so you have a more relaxed, calm, beneficial sleep. Uh, I I don't know if we could do that with Daff because she moves so much. Like we forgot to put her in her cage like Friday night actually, which is one of the reasons why I'm still tired. We forgot to put her in the cage
Right.
overnight. She decided that she was going to come upstairs, and first she realized she could get into Carson's room. She loves sleeping with Carson. Like if they're like just snuggling on the couch or something, she goes for Carson. So she tried getting in there with Carson and sleeping. Next thing I know, Carson is coming into our room trying to climb into bed with us, and we're like, "The heck are you doing?" And then the dog comes in with her, and there's just so much movement. It was like, oh my gosh, I can't sleep at all. Now I'm going to lose my mind. But somehow, if you don't have all those stressful situations happening, I guess if you have anything you love. Pets help a lot, but it can even be your partner or your child or whoever. If you have that comfort sleeping next to you, that's why some people, whenever they sleep, they need like a big pillow or something to just hug. It somewhat supplements that comfort, but it gives you a lot better sleep.
For me, I like having my kids laying next to me.
Yeah. Another thing that we were talking about just a couple weeks back when we were talking about just what is trauma and trying to go over my traumas and stuff. So uh Gabor, he said, and don't get mad at me because I'm going to butcher this, but he was talking about that because remember I kept asking like what was trauma, like what made something traumatic. So his explanation was not all bad experiences or not all experiences in general can be trauma, but like whenever you're a child, if you have some really repeated and triggered experience with something, like for him, it was the bombs and everything like that, it causes that constant negative reaction just in his brain subconsciously that he can't help. And that is what makes something trauma. Because if it hadn't affected him in that way, where it was a continued struggle, then it wouldn't be trauma. It would just be a bad experience. So I was actually kind of happy that he kind of answered that question that we were talking about because it's, I feel like some people end up in a trap where they label everything as trauma and it's not, they label everything as trauma and it makes them give things more power than it really has, if that makes sense. And it's not things that are actually a lasting effect. Like they'll blame a bad day. Oh, it's because trauma or some nonsense. You
Right.
know,
Not everything's trauma,
it
but
just
trauma is something that repetitively keeps you feeling stuck.
right.
That's the best way that I could describe it. It's something that you always circle back to, and it's like that circle and those intrusive thoughts that keep coming up over and over again for someone.
And Patty, I probably completely butchered what he said. I was trying to do a brief explanation. You should really watch it though, Patty. Go to Theo Vaughn's channel on YouTube, and a couple videos down, he has a podcast with Gabor Mate. I think that's how you say his name. Really, really insightful. It made me, the entire time I was listening to it, I was working and I was driving around a lot. It was one of those days where I kind of had a few long drives. And the entire time, once I got about halfway through or so, all I wanted to do was go home and just be with my kids. Like it just literally the entire time because it constantly made me think about them and how much I literally just want to give my kids a hug. It was
Wow.
probably one of the most impactful uh, podcasts I've ever watched. Honestly, it was
Wow.
great. Yeah, but all right, so we can get into our topic. We kind of got off track there. We want to talk about not becoming complacent when you are dealing with something. And this is anything. It doesn't have to be addiction or anything like that. You could have just had a loved one pass away. And what I feel like happens with a lot of people, they'll maybe go through like the therapy and go through whatever they need to kind of get through that loss or get through that hard time or accept the fact that they dealt with a hard time, but then they end up at a point where they stop moving forward because they kind of got off track whenever they were dealing with whatever they were dealing with, and instead of continuing to move forward and continuing to grow, they just kind of hit a stopping point, and it's like it's all over. You aren't benefiting in any way. You aren't advancing yourself. And I think one of the probably one of the best things to get through recovery and to make it successful and get to a point where it's no longer a large center of your life. To get through a loss, to get through losing your job, to get through anything hard, you have to have more goals. You have to have those goals that you're striving for so that you can keep moving on and you don't become complacent, because I think complacency is the number one thing that causes people to relapse or go into a depression, go into anything.
People stop putting into effort into things. And
Hmm.
when you stop putting effort into things, that's how you become complacent. You always have to try to keep moving forward and working towards your goals. You have to have goals set.
I think a lot of people don't recognize that they are complacent. You know what I mean? Like they think, well, I'm going to my job every day. I'm taking care of my kids every day and doing this and that and whatever. Maybe I'm going to the gym every day too. I'm eating right. So you're doing the right things, but you're still at like this stale state where nothing's really increasing, nothing's really decreasing. And if it
Right.
stays like that, you're just gonna hit a point where it drops off. It's never, I don't want to say never. It's usually not going to go up. It's literally just going to drop off at some point. And you have to have those things to prepare yourself. And you can do this like if it is a recovery based thing and you just got out of, 10 years of using, you have to be able to have those long-term goals and short-term goals so you can keep it moving. Like what did actually, what did you do whenever you first got off everything? Did you set goals for yourself?
I have small goals that I
Yes.
work towards, and then I have a little bit bigger goals, and then I have the bigger goals. So I
Sure.
break it up into like little subsections, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So that I don't feel anxious about it. Like, oh my God, I have all this on my plate. I try to
Yes.
take it in little tiny sections. But absolutely, yes, I do have goals.
Do you remember some of those goals you set for yourself?
Yeah, some of those goals that I set for myself were small goals, like to be able to be financially independent. Like
I feel like
that
that's
was
a
a big
big
one
goal.
for me. That's but this is the thing, like I, as a woman, never was able to take care of myself on my own. Like now I know I can take care of myself. I can take care of myself and my kids by myself. I don't need anything else. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So
How
that's a good one for me, especially.
did you like set exact ways you were gonna accomplish that? Like let's go off the
Yeah.
financials first.
Honestly, I started out really, really small when it came to goals because I was in a really broken place in the beginning of my recovery journey. Like, I had a lot of things on my plate mentally. And if I didn't go the right way, I wouldn't be standing where I am today. Like, my kids, just like my goals were to be able to get a roof over my head at one point.
Yeah.
Like, that was a big one, and to be able to do it by myself, and to be able to take care of my kids by myself, and to be able to figure it out by myself because I knew I was going to be by myself.
Whenever you set a goal like that, what like makes it so you feel like you've achieved it or at least improved it? Like if it is financial stability, how do you feel like you've
Like,
reached that?
so in the beginning of my recovery, one of my goals that I started working on was to rebuild my credit. My credit was completely shot.
Okay.
So I went from like a 524 credit score to I got an almost perfect credit score.
Yeah.
And I had to work towards that though. And it takes bits and pieces to
Takes
work
time.
towards that goal. But once you start seeing that goal and those numbers increasing, you're like, yeah, I did this. I built this. Like no one else did that for me. And to see that on like something like Credit Karma and to say like, dude, I went from being homeless and pregnant to that.
To that, yeah.
It's like, wow, like I reached my goals. I set my goals. But like you could see it come to fruition. Like I started out with a little prepaid credit card because they wouldn't give me a regular credit card because my credit was so bad.
Oh, so bad. Yeah. Yeah.
So I started off with one of those and I put like $200 towards it. But I had to save that $200 because I was
Mhm.
only on an income of $400 a month. Like,
Right.
so to even save that $200 was like,
It's
it took
big.
me little goals of saving that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So to
So,
finally get there and build that and see that, like, if I want something, I know I could get it. Like, I know that, like, when I got my car, I knew that I was going to be able to walk in there and walk out with a car. Years ago, I screwed that up for myself, though, years ago.
right.
So, like, to be able to build my credit to work towards my goal of, first of all, getting my driver's license back, because that took a lot for me to do.
That's some work. Yeah.
To work towards getting my license back, then to be able to get like a beater car,
Yep.
then to be able to get a brand new car, but they're all continuous goals.
Do you feel like there's like a point where that capped out, where it's no longer a thing, or are you constantly going for more?
I'm constantly working towards better. And that's one of the reasons why. And I know you and I have different beliefs about this sometimes, but that's why continuing to do therapy is huge for me. It's one of my huge goals. And the reason why it is because the more that I work on myself, the more that I realize what I've healed and recovered from.
So whenever you hit those milestones, you create kind of a new milestone for yourself, though, because that's kind of what
Right.
I'm trying to get at is if you set
Once you stop like trying to better yourself and you get complacent, that's that's like what when you start to spin your wheels, that's what in therapy they call a stuck point.
right.
It's something that you go back to, like one of those things.
And what I want to kind of make sure people understand though too. So let's say somebody's goal is I want to start saving money. Okay. That great goal. Good goal for everybody to have. And I think what ends up happening is you decide I am going to save $100 a month, and that is going to start being my savings. Okay, cool. Now you've been working on that goal for 2 years. You have that money saved, but is it going towards anything? Like, what is everything kind of has to have an attainable endpoint, because if it doesn't have an endpoint, then it's just something you're doing. It's not something you're striving for. So then maybe to make that a little bit better, you figure out, okay, instead of $100 a month, I want to figure out a way to save 120, and I want to get to this point. Once I get to this point, I'm gonna reward myself. Like once I get to
Right. After I had my kids, I held like I went to a weight that I was uncomfortable with. I'm 5 foot. I was 199. Like that's big for my frame.
sure.
I stayed that way because I was depressed. I wasn't happy in my life. Like, there was nothing that made me want to lose that weight, to be honest with you. But then, as I started to recover from other things, I started to realize, you know what? Like, work on yourself. I started going for walks every day. I started, like, within a month, I lost 20 pounds. And I'm like, okay, if I could do that, I could keep on going.
Right.
But when I first started walking, I would walk like a mile around the track. Then I would be like, you know what? F the mile. Tomorrow I'm doing 3 miles. And I would do 3 miles. And then after that, I'd be like, F that. I'm doing 5 miles. And I started to kind of become almost addicted to like
To walk in and you
to
created
no
it.
to like arguing against myself, if that makes sense.
Oh,
Like
okay.
I
Okay.
was fighting with the voice within me that told me that I couldn't do it, and I lost 75 pounds. And then once I lost that 75 pounds, I told myself, if I could keep this weight off for 1 year and I keep working out and bettering myself and don't miss one day of working out,
Right.
you can get yourself implants. And I did that. At first, I was just getting implants, but then I had issues with those implants. So then when I had to get them fixed, that's when I got my mommy makeover. But I justified that because I said, you know what? I keep trying to work towards bettering myself, and
Right.
I'm going to invest in myself.
And I think weight loss is another big one. It's always a big one for a lot of people, and
Right.
exercise and
It's
stuff like
huge.
that. And I think people end up putting too much pressure on themselves. One, you got to be careful putting time limits on yourself. It's good to have deadlines for some things, but it's better to have like a deadline for instead of like a weight loss deadline saying, oh, I'm going to lose 10 pounds in the next 2 weeks. Instead, be like, I am going to go from running 1 mile to 2 miles.
Well, that's what
Because
I did.
right. Because in return, you actually get those kind of final rewards that you want. And
Right.
I think people don't know how to structure their goals and like figure out how to move forward. You can reach for the freaking stars with some of this stuff. Like if you want to be the president of your company, whatever, wherever you work, let's say Amazon, you want to be the president of Amazon. Okay, bet. What do you have to do to get started on that? It can be anything. It does not have to be ridiculous because I promise you, anybody can do anything.
I remember, like, in the beginning of recovery, it was even the small things. It was the
Yeah.
smallest little tiny things that, like, just to have a place to lay your head,
Yeah.
just to have a clean pair of underwear. Like, it was small things, Kyle.
You have to have the day to day, otherwise, it's easy to lose focus. So, you have your ultimate goals, whatever they are. You have three, four things that you absolutely want out of life at some point. So go for those, figure out what you need to do to get to them. And that's like your next level of goals. And that's a little bit smaller things. And then you have even smaller, like if you think to get to president of Amazon, you have to, I don't know, wrap more packages, ship more packages, whatever. So to do that, maybe you need to be stronger, more physically fit or whatever. So you start working out. Like treat it all as something you can constantly improve on, and you'll actually make it somewhere. Even if you don't ever make it to whatever president you want to be someday, that's okay. If you
Because you're still improving yourself.
Right. And as long as you fought for it and you gave it your all and you committed, one, you aren't going to be going backwards because you keep your eye on the ball. You'll always have your eye on the ball if you have your goals laid out properly. But
Right.
you keep on going, you keep on fighting, and you're going to at least get to some point that leaves you comfortable. You know what I mean? You're going to be able to pay your bills. You're going to be in good shape. You're going to be healthy, everything.
And
And
that's another thing. Like, I went on this, I'm going to get myself healthy. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to cut my sugar out. It was the small things. And then those small things turned into bigger things
mhm,
because eventually, like, I used to drink 3 coffees in the morning. So I would take those, it was the smallest things. I would just cut the sugar in each one of those coffees. I
mhm.
cut the amount of creamer that I was putting in those coffees. But by doing those little small things, it turned into the bigger things
Oh,
eventually.
yeah, it adds up like crazy. I'm actually doing the same thing right now with coffee. So right now, some of the little things I got going on. One, I'm cutting back. Well, I'm trying to quit smoking. And instead of just throwing myself at it, like I did before because I was stressed and so busy. I told myself, oh, I just want to get this over with. And it didn't work. Surprise, surprise. So I am cutting back one smoke a week as long as
Right.
I'm comfortable. If I have a week where Sunday hits and it's like, man, I've been struggling every day this week with smoking, then I just won't skip that week. I got to get used to it. So because you have to create a pattern for yourself while you're trying to do this stuff too. Otherwise, it gets really really hard. But I've cut back on smoking. I'm down to I'm at 12 cigs a day right now, and then coffee. I was having usually 3 cups of coffee a day and usually a monster also. So a very big
Nice.
thing. I'm down to 1 cup of coffee a day and a smaller monster. And then what else is there? Exercise is always one. I've just kept on kind of improving that. I got out of that for a while too. Exercise is huge because it helps with motivation, it helps with energy, it helps with your mental state,
Right.
helps
It
with
helps to build the
anxiety.
endorphins.
Right. If you are dealing with recovery or loss or anything like that, it is a really, really big dopamine hit whenever
Right.
you're exercising, which is going to help you overall. So uh, that I got away from because I got so busy, and I've started figuring out kind of no matter what, like I have all my goals written down, everything. And every time it changes, I change them, write it all out, make sure I know what I'm doing. And if that piece of paper says to do something, I have to. It doesn't, it like no excuses for myself, no nothing. It doesn't,
Right.
like I told you, I jacked up my arm doing too much yesterday. Still working out today. No
So I
excuses.
have a question. Did working out and like going for the walk today help make you feel like your mental health is improved?
I would say so. Especially, I've been really, really hitting the small stuff for probably the past like 6 or 7 weeks now. And like I feel like I have more energy, but it's been like you got to understand, like when I with the smoking and the coffee and everything, like I'm dropping down one smoke a week. This is not some crazy drastic thing. I'm
Right.
taking
It's not
it.
a drastic change, but it's a
Right.
change in the right direction.
Right. And it keeps your eye on the ball. It makes it so it's not super hard. And I feel like it's helped my energy a lot. Like,
That's great.
and the smoking less because now, so I got, whenever I really, really cut back, I got all the way down to where I was having like a cigarette a day maybe, or and then it got to like I was having three, and then it got to where I was having five, and then it kind of slowly
And
kept
then and
moving
then
up.
you're stressed out and you're like, eh.
Yeah, and then I hit a point. Well, I think I hit the point where I was at like 15, and I'm like, whatever.
Right.
I'm just gonna smoke however many I want, and it's just because I went about it the wrong way, and that is another thing. If you have a goal and you go about it the wrong way and you fail, that's okay. You just figure it out, try again, try something else. There's always a different way to do things. So if you want it, just work it through. Fucking go on Reddit and see if you can find other ideas on how to do whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter. But one of the reasons I want to talk about this was because I've had so many people lately that are hitting that stuck point. It's crazy how many people just get complacent and they don't even realize where they're at.
Or like even complacency in relationships. You know, when you
Yeah.
don't put things into things, it's not going to work out. You have to continuously put into that and
Mhm.
put love into it.
And there are things like, okay, so right now, I feel like I'm doing pretty good relationship wise and as a parent and goal oriented and job oriented stuff like that. Um, but if I was really going to change something, I would say like right now, I'd maybe make it so every week I have a day where I focus on Shan. Like whenever I get
Right.
home from work that day, it's all about Shan. Like obviously deal with the
Like a
kids.
date night.
Yeah, do whatever I need to, even if it's not a date night, because even that can put too much pressure right away if you aren't used to it. Maybe it's literally just me and her. Instead of me going and doing whatever, me and her make dinner together and then do whatever. And you just slowly build on stuff like that. Because if you do something long enough, it just becomes a habit.
You have to continuously do those little things. Because
Yeah.
if you stop doing them, that's where like it's like, that person stopped, I'm stopping. They
Right.
got complacent, I got complacent.
And having other people around you that are also very complacent or lazy or aren't trying to get anywhere, that can be a huge effect on you too.
Well, that can be a huge effect on someone's mental health. If you're living
Yeah.
with someone that's complacent and you're realizing that you're moving forward and that person's not moving forward, it's a very difficult situation mentally to deal with. It really, truly is.
Yeah.
And I've been there before. And I know other people, like other women that I've talked to, that have that situation where they just feel stuck and trapped within their relationships. And a lot of times it's because of like financial things, like the
Sure.
man has control of the money and the woman feels stuck and trapped, or just there's the woman that's doing all the work and the man's just sitting there sponging. Like there's multiple different scenarios, but it's hard to deal with mentally.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I think in a situation like that, you have to kind of figure out what you want. And even if so, like let's say a guy has all the control of the money and like he wants to know what you're doing every second of every day, so you can't
Right.
just go out and make your own money or whatever. You have to you have to kind of set those boundaries. It's hard because a lot of the people that are like that are also abusive and all types of stuff. You have to find some way to circumvent all that, because even if it's something like, I don't know, this dude won't let you leave the house, start a business online, figure something. There's always something you can do no matter what, and that could be the thing to give you the financial freedom to get away from him.
Right. A lot of people don't really understand what the word abuse is.
No, a lot of people don't. It doesn't have to
They think
be.
like abuse has to be someone like physically like
Yeah.
hurting someone. No, abuse comes in multiple different shapes and forms. I mean, it's the truth. A lot of abuse is mental abuse, being
And
gaslit 24/7.
and whenever you get into a relationship with somebody, it should always be something that is beneficial for both of you, that like you help each other do better and grow and
Right.
everything. And this doesn't just have to be relationships, it's friendships and everything. If that person is not helping you grow, I mean, especially if you're like married to them, whenever you say those vows, it's like you vowed to be by my side, you vowed to be my ride or die, you got to keep on moving with me.
But also, a lot of times when you have kids with someone, it is like very hard
Sure.
situation.
I've been
I get messages of so many women saying like, "Oh my God, I feel stuck. Like, I don't know what to do. You know, I don't have the money to get out of this situation. I don't have family. I don't have extended family. I can't figure out a way out." And a lot of people just feel trapped because of trauma bonds.
And that's fair. And I feel like a lot of people have to figure out, um, like, let's say you're stuck in that situation and you do feel down, you're depressed all the time, you have no financial freedom, you can't do anything. maybe your overall goal is to get some financial freedom and get away. Figure something out that you can do, even if it's not money related. You have to do something to build your self confidence and to grow yourself, just those little bits, so that you can actually either one, stand up to the person, have the courage to get away. Anything. I mean, literally can be the smallest thing. So maybe even if it's something as simple as like meditating every single day, you decide you're going to start meditating and collecting your thoughts and think about what the heck you can do to make this situation better or to improve. And you can also escape from all that darkness. Like if you are in a really, really bad situation, meditation, yoga, whatever can give you some sort of a reprieve so you also don't have to think about that stuff, which in turn will help your mental health.
I feel like people with trauma just keep circling back. Like I have problems because it's that trauma bond. It's that
Sure.
I, I don't, I think you've had to live the nightmare to understand the nightmare, if
Sure.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you've had to walk the walk to know the
Yeah.
walk. I just feel like sometimes it's hard to understand unless you've really been there.
Yeah. No, I agree.
A
I
lot of people don't understand, like they would abuse or like just like or to be able to walk away from a certain situation, you know? It's easier said than done half the time.
Oh, 1,000%.
It's
That's
so complicated.
that's why you have to do something to you have to find a way to be better, like do better for yourself. You have to. Otherwise you'll just stay stuck. That's how it is. No questions
Right.
asked.
And no one wants to stay stuck and keep circling in that because it's a lot mentally with
Mhm.
like you'll have intrusive thoughts and you just keep like would it shoulda coulda woulda this that the next thing.
Yeah, because if you're in a depressed state or you haven't been taking care of yourself just because you are in a situation like that,
Right.
you aren't going to get anywhere if you keep it up. You have to figure out what it's going to take, and with kids that can be hard too because you have that responsibility all day. Also, there are people that fear for their lives, and it's something that you have to figure out. It's either you don't and it just stays the way it is and you stay stuck.
That's how I felt when I was going to jail. I was in
Mhm.
the jail wagon on my way to jail pregnant. And it was either you do the right thing or
Mhm.
you don't do the right thing, Marie. You got one, it was one choice for me. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do right by myself this time. And that's when I had my I'm done. I'm
Right.
done. I would still be in prison right now with 2 more years to go if I didn't make the right decision. I wouldn't have my kids today.
You have to take accountability for what's going on in the situation that you have ended
Right.
up in. Like you
Right.
have to
That's when I was
understand
like,
where
you
you're
know
at.
what? I'm done. I'm not, this is not going to be my life anymore. I'm not living
Right.
my life like this anymore. I'm not going to give birth in jail.
Right.
Like that right there, the thought of that was made me just terrified to my core. And I knew that if I made one wrong decision, I had the decision to either do the jail time
Mhm.
or leave to go to a program, complete the program, and complete 2 years of probation. Do you
Right.
know how freaking hard it is as an addict to have 2 years of probation hanging over your head? Right?
Yeah.
Because if
Shit.
I failed the probation, what was going to happen to me? I was going to end up in jail, and there goes my kids.
Yep.
Like, no. So it was the little steps that I took in the right direction that turned my whole entire life around. It's that moment. I had that moment. The fear kicked right in, and I said, I'm done. I'm done. I cannot do this no more.
And the sad thing is, not everybody is going to have that moment. Not everybody will.
Right.
Some people will continue to blame everybody else. I'm not saying that, it's your fault you're in this situation. It's not always somebody's fault. You can stumble into a really bad situation or have someone take advantage of you, and you're in a bad situation before you know it. It happens all the time. But at that point, you have to make the decision. Otherwise, you're just going to be stuck. Because a lot of the people that, whenever it comes to like relapses and stuff, it's that stuck cycle. And you can usually tell when someone really wants to get out of it because they'll stop blaming everything else. And it's hard not to. I used to do it all the time.
Right. In the beginning of my recovery, when someone would when I would need to take accountability for something, it was really hard for me to take accountability.
Mhm.
That was a very difficult thing for me. It was hard for me to say, yeah, maybe I wasn't always the best mother. Maybe I always didn't make the best choices. You know, accountability is everything.
Yeah.
And once you start to take accountability, that's when you can be like, okay, I can work through this and try to move forward.
Well, and that shit makes you resentful if you don't and stuff. Because, like, I can't tell you how many times I would blame somebody else for, oh, yeah, this is why I needed to use today because that person was a dick to me and I just needed to do something. Like, I used to do that stuff all the time because I couldn't take accountability for the fact that, no, I was stuck on a substance. I was being a little pansy butt and couldn't go through some withdrawal for a second and just accept my punishment almost. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that's one of the reasons why withdrawal is so bad. It is your body punishing you for the constant abuse of yourself. And once you get through that, it's all better. Like
I
it's
could remember laying on a cold gel floor. And that's crazy because that's like whatever, that's like a 360
Mhm.
moment. Because in the beginning of this podcast, I was saying how I will only puke in a bucket, right?
Yep, yep.
But there I go. I just had that recollection of laying on the cold gel floor, and it felt so good because I was so freaking sick, like sweating. Ugh, I was laying in my own puke at that point in my hair on the floor. I
Mhm.
didn't care. I've laid on some of the nastiest floors. But it's just crazy how your perception of things changes as you do recover and heal. Like now, today, you're probably never going to catch me laying on a bathroom floor. Like today, this is what I go for. But if I didn't make those small little strides in the right direction, I wouldn't be where I am today, or Kyle wouldn't be where he is today.
I feel like I can say I am recovered and not in recovery, or you know what I mean. Just I do not feel, with the point I'm at now, I don't feel like I will ever go back to anything. It's not even a thought. I don't want to use. I don't like it. It's hard to explain because there are so many people out there who dealt with substance abuse for a long time and still need it, and need to go to those meetings every day and everything. That is taking accountability for yourself and being responsible for yourself, and that is one of the best things you can possibly do. But you can hit a point where it's just, it doesn't matter. I'm on to other things. Like, I wasted so much time, I'm not wasting any more time, and I'm gonna keep it
Right.
moving. So yeah, it's whenever I open my messages, and it's one of the reasons why it's really hard to help people, especially a lot of people, because you will have just message after message where you go through with the person, you're trying to give them every lifeline you possibly can, and they're just like, oh no, I can't do that. There's no options for me. I have to use. You don't have to use. No matter what, there's always there's always something you can do to get out of it.
Right. In the beginning, I used to make a lot of excuses for a lot of things.
Mhm.
And because it was like almost like lazy. Like I didn't want to do certain things. Like I didn't want to, I said I wanted it, but I really didn't want it.
I don't know how to like push somebody over that line. You know what I mean? Because you have, I don't know if everyone's capable of it. That's my thing. I think everyone is capable of like getting to the other side of anything if they really want it. But I think some people like they just do it for so long, like they make that excuse for themselves and blame everybody else for so long, like they almost pass that point where it's ever gonna actually sink in, if that makes sense.
Right.
I don't know, cause it's like, yeah, I had one of my old friends was struggling with cola, and he just made every single excuse for himself that he needed to keep using. He was broke. He was living on his parents' couch. They wanted him to go, and he just wasn't. And it was constant. Like even his mom was trying to help give him like a little bit of support and pay for a place for a couple months, like put down deposit, pay for a place,
Wow.
buy him some clothes so that he could go do a job interview because he doesn't have a job. He doesn't really do anything, and it's like I don't know how to turn that around. I feel like I struggle with this so much because I am not the type of person to become like complacent. I always want more, and the
Right.
subs and all that kind of took that from me for a little bit, and now it's like it's back. So it's I don't understand how somebody can get stuck in that point anymore. It's crazy. I guess it really is if somebody thinks that they want to improve or really believes they want to improve and they don't know how. I guess probably one of the first steps is like analyzing yourself. Just sit there and write out like what are some of the things that I may be unhappy with or some of the things that I'm repeatedly ending up doing. And I'm telling
Right.
you, the power of writing something down is huge.
I know that for a fact. That's what I did before I ended my relationship. I started writing down like how I felt each day so
Yeah.
that I could go look back at it and see how many good days versus bad days. And I saw the patterns in
Mhm.
certain things. And by having it written down, it was like, okay, I see it.
Yeah. It's
Because
huge.
visually seeing something is just different. I don't know. For me, it was good to go back so that I could be like, no, you weren't imagining this. Like, this is real.
And that's one of the things like with the goals that I'm kind of striving for now. I get it as a guy too sometimes because there are just some guys that think it's stupid to write something out or have a journal or whatever. It's not stupid. I get where they're coming from, but just do it. I promise it helps. But even with my things, like we'll go easy, the quitting smoking thing. So there is literally nothing stopping me at any point in time from
Right.
having that extra cigarette on a day if I'm having a bad day.
You know
But
what it is? It's called willpower.
yeah, and that's something that a lot of people struggle with.
Right. Because you have to have the willpower to say, you know what? I'm doing this now. I'm going to make sure that I follow through with my goals. That's what you call willpower for sure.
The follow through is hard for so many people, and that's why I
Right.
have along with my goals, whenever I put my goals down, I will put my goal like where I'm currently at, but I also always put where I have like how far I've come. Like I've cut out this many, cups of coffee each week or each day, and this is where I'm at now. Because if you can constantly get that reminder and see kind of where you're going, it's huge.
Right.
Hopefully something that we said can help someone identify that maybe they aren't getting where they want to be and can give them that little push, because dude, the smallest change can seriously help. Just keep that change going.
All right.
We are all good. Hang in there,
Thank you for
homie.
everyone that joined.